The docking bay of Nexus Prime hummed with the controlled chaos of interstellar commerce. Marcus Vale shouldered his travel pack and stepped off the transport, his weathered boots clicking against the polished metal floors. The trading station stretched out before him like a miniature city suspended in the void, its transparent walls offering breathtaking views of the star-scattered darkness beyond. Another day, another deal, he murmured to himself, adjusting the collar of his well-worn leather jacket. At 32, Marcus had earned a reputation as one of the most successful independent traders in the outer sectors, not through ruthless tactics or corporate backing, but through something far more valuable, his ability to see potential where others saw only obstacles. The grand atrium buzzed with representatives from dozens of worlds, their exotic forms and vibrant attire creating a tapestry of galactic diversity. Marcus had attended many such summits, but this one felt different. The Trisector Trade Alliance was on the verge of expanding into previously unexplored regions, and the potential profits were astronomical. He was studying his datapad, reviewing shipping manifests, when a hush fell over the crowd. Marcus looked up to see a procession entering through the main corridor. The delegation moved with practiced precision, their flowing robes shimmering like captured starlight. At their center walked a figure that commanded immediate attention, not through grandeur, but through an almost otherworldly grace. Princess Nissa of the Zephyrian Empire stood barely 5.5 feet tall, but her presence filled the entire atrium. Her traditional veil, crafted from what appeared to be liquid moonlight, concealed her features completely, leaving only her posture and movements to speak for her. The fabric seemed to respond to her emotions, shifting from silver to pale blue as she surveyed the gathering. Marcus found himself staring, not out of the morbid curiosity that seemed to grip most of the other delegates, but from genuine fascination. He had heard whispers about the Zephyrians, how they never showed their faces to outsiders, how their appearance was supposedly so alien that it drove other species to madness. But watching her now, Marcus saw none of the monster the rumor suggested. He saw elegance, intelligence, and something else that tugged at his heart, loneliness. Best not to stare too long, warned a gravelly voice beside him. Marcus turned to find Brix Torian, his occasional business partner, nursing a glass of synthetic ale. The grizzled Centaurian's 4 arms gestured dismissively toward the Zephyrian delegation. That one's trouble. Her people don't mix with outsiders for good reason. What reason would that be? Marcus asked, unable to keep his eyes from drifting back to the veiled princess. Brix's mandibles clicked in what passed for a laugh among his species. Take your pick. Some say they're so hideous they'd turn you to stone with a glance. Others claim they're so beautiful they drive men insane with desire. Either way, that veil stays on for a reason. Marcus frowned. Sounds like superstition to me. Superstition keeps the galaxy running, my friend. Smart money says stay away from the mystery princess. But Marcus had never been one to follow smart money. As the evening's formal reception began, he found himself gravitating toward the Zephyrian delegation. Most attendees gave them a wide berth, content to conduct business through intermediaries. Marcus, however, approached directly. Your Highness, he said, offering a respectful bow. I'm Marcus Vale, independent trader. I was hoping to discuss potential commerce between our peoples. The princess turned toward him, and though he couldn't see her face, Marcus sensed her surprise. When she spoke, her voice was melodious, carrying a subtle harmonics that suggested her vocal cords were structured differently from human ones. You wish to speak with me directly, Trader Vale. There was curiosity in her tone, perhaps even amusement. Most of your kind prefer to keep their distance. Most of my kind are idiots, Marcus replied with a disarming smile. I found that the best deals come from personal connections, not fear and prejudice. A soft sound escaped from behind the veil, laughter, Marcus realized. It was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. How refreshingly honest. Very well, Trader Vale. What commerce do you propose? For the next hour, they discussed trade routes, resource exchanges, and cultural exports. Marcus was impressed by her keen understanding of economics and interstellar law. Princess Nissa, he discovered, was no mere figurehead but a sharp-minded negotiator who could hold her own in any boardroom. Your people produce some of the finest crystals in known space, Marcus was saying, gesturing enthusiastically. But you're only trading with 3 systems. If we could establish a broader network. The limitation is intentional, Nissa interrupted gently. My people prefer controlled contact with other species. We have found that too much interaction leads to complications. Marcus sensed pain beneath her diplomatic words. What kind of complications? The princess was quiet for a long moment, her veil shifting to a deeper blue. The kind that come from being misunderstood, she said finally. Tell me, Trader Vale, what do you see when you look at me? The question caught Marcus off guard. He studied her carefully, the graceful way she held herself, the subtle intelligence in every gesture, the musical quality of her voice that suggested depths he had yet to explore. I see someone who's tired of being judged by other people's fears, he said honestly. Someone brilliant who's been forced to hide that brilliance behind tradition and superstition. And he paused, surprised by his own boldness, someone beautiful, veil or no veil. The silence that followed stretched so long that Marcus began to worry he had overstepped. Then Nissa spoke, her voice softer than before. You would say that without even seeing my face. Beauty isn't just about appearance, Marcus replied. It's about the way you move, the way you think, the way you make others feel. And you, princess, are extraordinary. The veil flickered, and Marcus caught the briefest glimpse of something luminous beneath, not features, exactly, but a soft, pearlescent glow that made his breath catch. You are either very brave or very foolish, Marcus Vale, she whispered. Probably both, he admitted with a grin. It's gotten me this far. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a tall figure in elaborate robes, Regent Voss, Nissa's guardian and advisor. His disapproval was palpable even through his own ceremonial mask. Princess, he said curtly, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. The evening grows late. We should retire. Of course, Regent, Nissa replied, but Marcus detected reluctance in her tone. She turned back to him. Thank you for an illuminating conversation, Trader Vale. Perhaps we might continue our discussions tomorrow. I'd like that very much, Your Highness. As the Zephyrian delegation departed, Marcus found himself staring after them, his mind racing with possibilities that had nothing to do with trade routes or profit margins. He had traveled to dozens of worlds, negotiated with hundreds of species, but never had he felt the pull he experienced now. Brix appeared at his elbow, shaking his four-armed head in dismay. Marcus, my friend, I've seen that look before. That's not your "I smell profit" expression. That's your "I'm about to do something spectacularly stupid" face. Marcus couldn't argue with the assessment. Everything logical told him to focus on business, to maintain professional distance, to respect the cultural barriers that kept the Zephyrians isolated. But logic had never been his strongest suit when it came to matters of the heart. She's incredible, Brix, he said, still watching the corridor where Nissa had disappeared. Intelligent, witty, graceful, everything you could want in a person. She's also completely off-limits, Brix pointed out. The Zephyrians don't form attachments with outsiders. It's not just tradition, Marcus, it's genetic. Their bonding process is supposedly incompatible with other species. Supposedly, Marcus repeated. That word again. How much of what we know about them is actually true, and how much is just fear talking? Brix's mandibles clicked nervously. Some fears exist for good reasons. Marcus turned away from the corridor, but his resolve was already hardening. Tomorrow he would see her again, and maybe, just maybe, he could convince her to trust him with whatever lay behind that shimmering veil. The merchant in him recognized a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but it wasn't profit driving him now. It was something far more dangerous and infinitely more precious, the possibility of love without boundaries. As the station's artificial night cycle began, Marcus made his way to his quarters, his mind already planning their next meeting. He had no idea that several systems away, political forces were already moving against the growing connection between human and Zephyrian. Nor did he suspect that Princess Nissa lay awake in her own chambers, her skin glowing softly in patterns no outsider had ever seen, thinking of a traitor who saw past her veil to the woman beneath. The greatest negotiations, Marcus had learned, weren't about goods or services. They were about hearts and minds, trust and hope. And tomorrow, he intended to broker the most important deal of his life. The hydroponics gardens of Nexus Prime were a marvel of engineering, a vast dome where artificial sunlight nurtured plants from across the galaxy. Marcus had suggested meeting there, away from the formal conference rooms and prying eyes. As he waited among the towering Andromedan ferns, he wondered if Princess Nissa would actually come. The soft rustle of fabric announced her arrival. She moved between the exotic blooms like a ghost made of starlight, her veil having shifted to a warm amber hue that complemented the garden's golden illumination. Marcus felt his heart skip as she approached, the same inexplicable pull he'd experienced the night before drawing him toward her. "You came," he said, unable to hide his relief. "I almost didn't," Nissa admitted, her melodious voice carrying a note of uncertainty. Regent Voss was quite clear about his disapproval of our conversation. Marcus gestured to a secluded alcove where Terran roses grew alongside crystalline flowers from the Vega system. "Then perhaps we should make the most of our time before he discovers we're here." As they settled onto a bench carved from living wood, Marcus studied her more carefully. Today her veil seemed less opaque, allowing hints of the luminescence beneath to show through. Her hands, he noticed, were delicate but strong, with skin that held a subtle pearl-like quality. "Tell me about your world," Marcus said. "Not the diplomatic version, the real Zephyria." Nissa was quiet for a moment, her veil shifting to deeper gold. "It's beautiful in ways your language cannot describe. Our cities grow rather than being built, shaped from living crystal that responds to our emotions. At night, when my people gather, entire districts pulse with shared feelings, joy, sorrow, hope. We are, in many ways, a collective soul." "That sounds incredible," Marcus said softly. "But also overwhelming." "It can be." Her voice grew wistful. "Imagine never being alone with your thoughts, always feeling the emotional resonance of thousands around you. Privacy, as you understand it, doesn't exist. Perhaps that's why the veil became so important to us, it's the only barrier we have." Marcus leaned forward, intrigued. "Is that why your people avoid other species? Because you can't control the emotional connection?" "Partially." Nissa's hands clasped together in her lap. "When we interact with non-Zephyrians, the feedback is chaotic. Most species' emotional patterns are too alien, too harsh. It causes physical pain, sometimes permanent damage to our neural pathways." "But not with me?" Marcus asked, hope coloring his voice. The veil shimmered, and Marcus caught another brief glimpse of the soft glow beneath. "No," she whispered. "Not with you. Your emotional resonance is harmonious. Warm. I've never experienced anything like it." Before Marcus could respond, a new voice cut through the garden's tranquility. "Princess Nissa." Regent Voss emerged from behind a cluster of Martian succulents, his ceremonial robes rustling with disapproval. "Your presence is required at the afternoon sessions." Marcus stood, placing himself slightly between Nissa and her guardian. "We were just discussing trade possibilities." "I'm sure you were," Voss interrupted, his masked face turning toward Marcus with barely concealed hostility. "However, the princess has obligations that supersede your commercial interests." Nissa rose gracefully, but Marcus could sense tension in her posture. "Of course, Regent." Trader Vale was quite informative about human customs. "I'm certain he was." Voss's tone suggested he found nothing worthwhile in human customs. "Come, princess. We mustn't keep the council waiting." As they began to leave, Nissa turned back to Marcus. Perhaps we might continue our cultural exchange tomorrow. I find myself curious about more human traditions. The emphasis she placed on the word cultural made Marcus smile. I'd be honored to share more about my people, Your Highness. After they departed, Marcus remained in the garden, his mind churning with possibilities and concerns. The connection he felt with Nissa was undeniable, but the barriers seemed insurmountable. How could he compete with millennia of tradition and the protective instincts of her people? That evening, Marcus was reviewing trade contracts in his quarters when his door chimed. He opened it to find a small service drone carrying an elegant crystal data pad. The message it contained was brief but electrifying. The observation deck. Level 47. Midnight. Come alone. N. Marcus arrived at the specified location to find it deserted except for Nissa, who stood silhouetted against the spectacular backdrop of the Andromeda Nebula. The observation deck's transparent walls offered an unobstructed view of space, and the swirling cosmic colors painted her veiled form in shades of purple and blue. I wasn't sure you'd get my message, she said without turning around. I'd have found a way to be here regardless, Marcus replied, moving to stand beside her. This view is incredible. I come here often during diplomatic missions, Nissa said. Space is the same everywhere, vast, beautiful, indifferent to the small conflicts that divide us. Marcus studied her profile, noting how the nebula's light made her veil seem almost transparent. Is that what this is to you? A small conflict? What we're doing here isn't small at all, she said, finally turning to face him. It's dangerous. For both of us. Dangerous how? Nissa was quiet for a long moment. My people have legends about the time before the veils, when we interacted freely with other species. The stories tell of Zephyrians who formed bonds with outsiders, only to be driven mad by the incompatible emotional feedback. Some killed themselves rather than endure the pain. Others simply faded away, unable to exist in either world. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the observation deck's climate controls. But you said my emotional resonance was harmonious. It is, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. That's what makes it so dangerous. I've never met anyone whose presence calms the chaos in my mind instead of adding to it. Do you understand what that means? Marcus stepped closer, drawn by something deeper than mere attraction. It means we're meant to find each other. Or it means I'm deluding myself because I'm tired of being alone. The pain in her voice was unmistakable. Do you know what it's like, Marcus? To be surrounded by people but unable to truly connect with any of them? To have your every emotion reflected back by an entire species until you can't tell what's yours and what belongs to others? Without thinking, Marcus reached out and gently took her hand. The moment their skin touched, something extraordinary happened. A warm sensation spread up his arm, not unpleasant but definitely alien. More than that, he could suddenly sense her emotions, not clearly, but like distant music just at the edge of hearing. Nissa gasped, her veil flaring with brilliant silver light. How is this possible? She breathed. I don't know, Marcus admitted, marveling at the connection forming between them. But I'm not afraid of it. You should be. Despite her words, she didn't pull away. If Regent Voss or the High Council discover what's happening, they'll forbid any further contact. They might even order my return to Zephyria immediately. Then we'll be careful, Marcus said, threading their fingers together. The strange warmth intensified, and he could feel her surprise, her hope, and underneath it all, a loneliness so profound it made his heart ache. Whatever this is between us, it's worth the risk. Nissa's free hand moved to the edge of her veil, hesitating at the fabric's edge. There are things about my people you don't understand. Physical differences that might. Stop, Marcus said firmly. Whatever you look like, whoever you are beneath that veil, it doesn't matter. I'm not here for your appearance. I'm here for you. How can you be so certain? Marcus smiled, feeling more confident than he had in years. Because I've spent my whole life looking for something I couldn't name. I've traveled to every corner of known space, met thousands of people, made countless deals. But none of it meant anything until I met you. The veil shimmered, and for just a moment, Marcus caught a glimpse of luminous skin and eyes that seemed to hold captured starlight. Then Nissa pulled back, her breathing rapid. "I need time to think," she said, though she still held his hand. "This connection between us, it's everything I've dreamed of and everything I've been taught to fear." "I understand," Marcus said, though letting her go was the hardest thing he'd done in years. "But Nissa, can I call you that?" She nodded, her veil now a soft pink that Marcus was learning indicated happiness. "Nissa, whatever happens, don't let fear make this decision for you. We both deserve a chance at something real." As she prepared to leave, Nissa turned back one final time. "Tomorrow there's a cultural presentation where each delegation shares aspects of their world. Would you show me something truly human? Not the sanitized diplomatic version, but something that matters to you personally?" Marcus felt his heart race. "I'd be honored." After she left, Marcus remained on the observation deck, staring out at the nebula while trying to process what had happened. The warmth from their touch still lingered in his hand, and he could swear he still felt an echo of her emotions at the edge of his consciousness. He had negotiated with aliens who communicated through color changes, traded with species who existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and once spent 3 days convincing a hive mind to purchase his entire cargo of rare minerals. But nothing in his experience had prepared him for falling in love with someone whose face he had never seen, whose very touch might be reshaping both their destinies. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, he was certain. Regent Voss's disapproval was only the beginning. Marcus sensed deeper currents of politics and tradition that could tear them apart. But tonight, for the first time in his life, Marcus Vale felt like he had found something worth risking everything to protect. The connection forming between them was fragile, impossible, and absolutely essential to both their futures. The cultural presentation hall buzzed with anticipation as delegates from across the galaxy prepared to share the essence of their civilizations. Marcus stood backstage, his heart pounding as he clutched a small, worn leather journal, his most precious possession and the key to showing Nissa something genuinely human. He had watched the previous presentations with growing anxiety. The Altarians had displayed their crystalline art forms that sang in harmonious frequencies. The Proxima Collective had demonstrated their hive mind poetry, where hundreds of voices spoke as one. Each presentation was polished, diplomatic, designed to impress rather than reveal. When his turn came, Marcus walked onto the stage to find Nissa sitting in the front row of the Zephyrian delegation, her veil now a curious shade of silver blue. Regent Voss sat beside her, his posture radiating disapproval even through his ceremonial robes. "Honored delegates," Marcus began, his voice carrying clearly through the hall's acoustics. "Most presentations today have shown you the pinnacle achievements of our civilizations. I want to share something different, something that shows not what we've accomplished, but who we are." He opened the leather journal, its pages yellowed with age. "This belonged to my grandmother, Elena Vale. She was a terraforming engineer who spent her life turning dead worlds into gardens. But this journal wasn't about her work, it was about her dreams." Marcus began to read, his voice growing stronger with each word. "Day 847 on Kepler 442b, the atmospheric processors are ahead of schedule, but I'm not thinking about the oxygen ratios tonight. I'm thinking about the apple tree I planted near the eastern ridge. In 50 years, when children who haven't been born yet climb its branches, will they know that someone once stood here and dreamed of their laughter?" The hall had grown completely silent. Marcus continued, sharing excerpts that revealed his grandmother's hopes, fears, and unshakable belief that every person deserved a world where they could grow and thrive. As he read, he watched Nissa's veil shift through dozens of colors, surprise, wonder, something that might have been recognition. "The last entry," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion, "was written the day before she died. I've learned that being human isn't about conquering the universe. It's about planting trees whose shade we'll never enjoy, building homes we'll never live in, and loving people we might never fully understand. That's what makes us who we are, hope for futures we'll never see. The silence that followed stretched for several heartbeats before gentle applause began, led by Princess Nissa herself. As Marcus left the stage, he caught her eye and saw something in her posture that made his breath catch, a subtle nod toward a side exit. 20 minutes later, Marcus found himself in a maintenance corridor deep in the station's lower levels. Nissa emerged from the shadows like a figure from a dream, her veil now pulsing with soft, rhythmic light. "That was beautiful," she said, her voice carrying emotions Marcus was learning to recognize through their growing connection. "Your grandmother sounds like she was an extraordinary woman." "She was the most human person I've ever known," Marcus replied. "Everything I am, I learned from her stories and her example." "And what did she teach you about love?" The question caught Marcus off guard. "That it's the only thing worth the risk of heartbreak. That real love isn't about possession or control, it's about wanting someone to be happy, even if their happiness doesn't include you." Nissa stepped closer, close enough that Marcus could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "Would you still feel that way if you knew loving me could destroy us both?" "What do you mean?" Instead of answering, Nissa reached up and grasped the edges of her veil. "The bond forming between us, it's not just emotional, Marcus. When Zephyrians connect with compatible partners, the relationship becomes biological, neurological. We become two parts of a single whole." "That doesn't sound destructive," Marcus said softly. "It is if the connection fails," Nissa whispered. "Broken bonds drive my people insane. The severed neural pathways create a feedback loop of pain that never ends. It's why we wear the veils, why we avoid deep connections with other species. The risk is too great." Marcus felt the weight of her words, but also the trembling in her hands. "Are you trying to warn me away?" "I'm trying to give you a choice based on truth rather than hope." Her veil flickered, revealing glimpses of the luminescence beneath. "Because once you see my face, once we complete this connection, there may be no going back for either of us." Marcus reached out and gently covered her hands with his own. The moment they touched, that warm sensation flooded through him again, stronger this time. He could feel her fear, her longing, her desperate hope that he would choose her despite the risks. "Nissa," he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart, "I've spent my whole life taking calculated risks. I've gambled on cargo that might not sell, trusted partners who might betray me, explored systems that might not be safe. But this isn't a calculation. This is faith." "Faith in what?" "In you. In us. In the possibility that love really can conquer the impossible." He smiled, feeling more certain than he ever had about anything. "Besides, my grandmother always said the best things in life come with the highest stakes." Tears were flowing freely down her cheeks now, he could see their luminescent tracks through the veil. "You would risk madness for me?" "I would risk anything for you." With trembling hands, Nissa began to lift her veil. "Then see me, Marcus Vale. See me as I truly am." The fabric parted like liquid starlight, revealing a face that took Marcus's breath away. Her skin was indeed luminescent, but not in the harsh way he had imagined. It glowed with the soft radiance of moonlight on water, shifting through subtle patterns that seemed to respond to her emotions. Her eyes were large and violet, filled with an intelligence and vulnerability that made his heart ache. Her features were delicate but strong, undeniably alien yet hauntingly beautiful. But it was the intricate patterns of light that traced along her cheekbones and forehead that truly mesmerized him, living tattoos of bioluminescence that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. "You're magnificent," Marcus breathed, meaning every word. The patterns on her skin flared brighter, and Marcus realized he was seeing her emotions made visible. "You're not frightened?" "Frightened?" Marcus stepped closer, drawn by something deeper than mere attraction. "Nissa, you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Not just your face, everything about you. Your mind, your heart, your courage in trusting me with this." When their lips met, the universe exploded into light and sensation. The kiss was electric in a literal sense. Marcus could feel energy flowing between them, creating connections that went far deeper than the physical. Images flashed through his mind, Nissa's memories, her childhood on crystal spires that sang in the wind, her loneliness as she grew into her royal role, her desperate hope that somewhere in the vast galaxy was someone who could see past her differences. At the same time, he felt his own memories flowing to her, his grandmother's stories, his years of wandering among the stars, his growing certainty that he had been searching for her all his life without knowing it. When they finally parted, both were glowing, Marcus with a soft aura he had never possessed before, Nissa with patterns of light that painted complex emotions across her skin. "The bonding," she whispered in wonder. "It's actually working." Marcus felt the truth of it in every cell of his body. They were connected now in ways that defied easy explanation, their minds and hearts linked by forces that transcended species barriers. He could sense her thoughts at the edge of his consciousness, feel her emotions as clearly as his own. "I love you," he said, the words feeling both new and ancient on his tongue. "And I love you," she replied, her skin blazing with joy. "My brave, impossible human." Their second kiss was interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. They sprang apart as Regent Voss rounded the corner, accompanied by 2 guards and Marcus's business partner Brix. "Princess." Voss's voice cracked like a whip. "What is the meaning of this?" Nissa straightened, every inch the royal despite her exposed face and the obvious evidence of their bonding. "I am choosing my own path, Regent. As is my right." "You're right." Voss's ceremonial mask seemed to radiate fury. "You have doomed yourself, child. The connection with this alien will destroy your mind." "The connection is stable," Nissa said firmly. "Stronger than any bond recorded in our histories. Marcus and I are neurologically compatible in ways our scientists said were impossible." Brix stepped forward, his 4 arms spread in a gesture of peace. "Marcus, friend, what have you done?" "What I had to do," Marcus replied, moving to stand beside Nissa. "I found the person I'm meant to spend my life with." "You found madness," Voss snapped. "Guards, arrest the human. He has corrupted a member of the royal family." "No," Nissa's voice carried the full weight of her authority. "Marcus is under my protection. Any action against him is an action against the crown." The standoff stretched taut as a wire until an alarm began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed the corridor in red as an automated voice announced, "All personnel to emergency stations. Hostile vessels detected approaching the station." "This is not a drill." Through their new connection, Marcus felt Nissa's sudden fear, not for herself, but for him and for the fragile peace their worlds had been building. Someone had been waiting for exactly this moment, when the political situation was most unstable, to strike. "We need to get to the command center," Marcus said, his trader's instincts kicking in. "If someone's attacking the station during the summit, they're targeting the peace process itself," Nissa finished, her mind already racing ahead to the implications. "This isn't random piracy. It's sabotage." As they hurried toward the main levels, Marcus realized their greatest challenge wasn't going to be convincing their people to accept their bond. It was going to be surviving long enough to build the future they had just glimpsed in each other's minds. But with Nissa's hand in his and their connection growing stronger with each passing moment, Marcus felt ready to face whatever dangers awaited them. After all, they had already conquered the impossible by finding love across the vast emptiness of space. Everything else was just details.